You're listening to the Creepcast on DownrightCreepy.com. Now, here's your creepy host.
Hello everyone, Casey Canton. Welcome to the Creepcast on DownrightCreepy.com. Today on the show we have director Fede Alvarez, the new director of Evil Dead, in theaters everywhere on April 5th. Fede, thanks for taking the time out to join us today. We really appreciate it, and we are all very excited for your new film, Evil Dead.
Hello guys, how you doing?
Now I want to start out with the performances in the film. Jane Levy, for instance, you shot on a long, grueling kind of schedule. I just want to know how you get the most out of your actors, because good actors really make a horror film. It really makes or breaks it. You can say that with any movie, but there's so many bad horror films out there that when a good one comes along, it's usually atmosphere, art direction, the composition of the film, whatever, but it hinges primarily on the actors and their performances. So can you talk a little bit about what it took to get these kind of performances with these long shooting days to make such a great film?
Thank you. I mean, everything starts, of course, in the pages, right? Like, it's very hard for an actor to give a good performance if the script sucks, right? So everything starts in the pages, and we put a lot of love in the characters in general, and we really care about, giving them stories that weren't necessarily related to the supernatural story, right? So each one of them, they have their journey that is not only plot driven but character driven. So that always helps. And then on the shooting itself, I think kind of my job was kind of exposing them to real things all the time. That's why we decided to make the film 100% practical and not use CGI and all that. It wasn't not just because I love horror films that looks real, but also because I knew that way the actors were going to be exposed to real things. That's why I decided also to shoot the film in a real forest. When sometimes these films, the first instinct is always to just build it on the stage, and I thought that was going to be a betrayal to the spirit of the original film. So I felt that we had to go and be in the woods and spend long nights in the wood, and everybody was freezing to death. But that's the way I think movies should be done. And also for the actors at the end of the day, all done were real things. So they could, the performances, they're not faking it all the time. When they're scared, sometimes I would surprise them with real jumps. When they were sometimes I kept them in the dark about some scenes and some moments of the movie, so they could react in a more truthful way. I was really pushing them to have the real experience, because I knew if they were having a real experience, that will translate into their performances.
Awesome. Now, you came from someone that worked on short films before this with pretty low budgets, and now you're going to this big budget studio movie, and also a movie that's iconic, an iconic franchise that people adore. So how are you handling working on short films that cost hundreds or thousands of dollars versus this one where you have a bigger budget and you're remaking such an iconic franchise? Just curious how you kind of went about and handled that.
Well, the budget is never a problem. It's never a problem to have a good budget. I mean, that's never going to be a problem. It's going to be a good thing. But the other day, for a horror movie, there was a good budget, but even we have to be very resourceful and come up with ideas to be able to make the movie look even bigger, right? But I'm a big fan of movies, but I'm a bigger fan of filmmaking itself. I fell in love with it since I was very young, and I always loved to learn the craft, every aspect of it. Not as a director, because I never thought of myself as a director. It's just like I was doing everything that was film related. I did music for my films in the past. I even played the piano on the soundtrack of this film in some parts. So I It's something that I love, just about every aspect of the filmmaking, except act. I would never be able to do that, but the rest, I think I did it all. And so I think it was really helpful, when it came down to make the movie, and also like it just helps if the director knows a little bit of everything. So when it came down to do the visual effects and all that's a field that I know. So it really helped me a lot. And it makes it very easy. Sometimes people ask me how it is to come from a short to $200 short to a movie. It's hard. And my answer is always the same. The hard part is to make a $300 alien invasion movie with no money and nothing. That's the hard part. Then when you have the resources to make something, it's always awesome, and it's always a pleasure. In Hollywood, you have the chance to be surrounded by amazing actors and great, and a great team. So that was great. And then regarding the challenge of remaking a classic, I know I was such a fan of the original, and Sam Raimi's movies in general, and I think that's part of the reasons why Sam gave me the movie. Otherwise, he would have never given me this movie. And because I know that all that universe, and most of my friends, they're all like freaks of horror and all that. So I know my audience. I know who I'm making this film for, in many levels. So I always felt great about it. I wasn't rewriting it. I wasn't overwriting anything. I wasn't trying to make a movie that was going to take the place of another. I just wanted to make a new story. That's why I decided to go with different characters. I decided to go with a different setup. The setup is completely different. But we were very careful, and I think we did with my friend Rodo, my co-writer. He's my best friend since we were kids. Together, I think we managed to do a good job, bringing the ideas of the original and fitting them in this new story without feeling forced, right? Without feeling that we were just trying to put those ideas there. And so that's why there was pressure, but I always felt like it was just awesome to be making an Evil Dead movie and be part of this family and having the chance to, make a movie that is called Evil Dead. I was always thinking about just the cool side and the great side and the honor of making one, and not the scary part of the pressure.
And so I guess kind of in the same topic there, I read somewhere where you went online and kind of started researching clips. Obviously, you've seen the Evil Dead movies in the past, but just referencing kind of clips of Raimi's work and trying to not necessarily mimic what he did, but bring some authenticity to the franchise, but still make it your own. So I'm just curious how much of that kind of research that you did you actually included in the film when you were making it, to try and make it your own and stand out a little bit more from the original.
Well, Sam was really pushy with the fact that he wanted me to make my own film. Even when I was trying to bring more elements from the original film, he will be very insistent with that idea. He will be like, Fede, I want you to make your film. This has to be your film. You don't need us. Don't depend on us and all that. He was really, really pushy, which was awesome. He was he really wanted me to have my own film. So he really gave us all the freedom to do it. So he never forced me to do something that I didn't want. He never really forced me to put something that I didn't want to. They never made me shoot something I didn't believe in. So they were the best producers you can ask for, because they gave him all the freedom. Everything goes down to the fact that he wanted this to be an author film. He wanted this film to come from a writer-director that will have all the freedom in the world to do whatever he wanted, because that's the spirit of the original film. And he wanted to make sure that translated to this one. And then as ideas, I think, naturally, every time you write something, as a director, it's tricky, but as a writer, it's easier because you create a story. And as a writer, I think you take ideas from every other good stuff you've seen or read in the past, or, from every experience you had to, it's just, usually every movie, every creation is a huge ripoff of 100 other things, just, blended together, and that way you create something new. So it became very more precise there, probably. Of course, we took a lot from The Exorcist. I think it's just a quintessential possession movie, and it has the best ideas, and it's kind of the Bible of the possession movie, right? So there's a mythology from that movie that is in every possession movie, so we took a lot from there. I think The Omen was also like a good reference for me as a good story of how you make the audience believe in the supernatural. You have a character, Mr. Thorne, that doesn't believe in anything, that is a politician that would never believe in the occult, and at the end you have the guy ready them all the time. So that was a great example of storytelling. How do you make somebody believe in the supernatural when they don't believe in anything? So maybe that, and then there's a lot of other stuff. On the technique side, I think Bram Stoker Dracula, the one that Francis Ford Coppola directed, I think was a great example of how to make a movie with techniques of other times, and that's something that I want to do in this film. That movie has a lot of very old school techniques, very old school, but they look amazing, and that make the movie be timeless. Those movies, they don't age at all. You can watch that film today, and they're still relevant, they're still amazing because they were conscious and not using top of the line technology to make the film. So that was something I didn't want to do in the film, just for that same reason, try to keep the movie as timeless as possible and make sure the movie doesn't age. That's why I decided not to use CGI, right? So that's some few of the movies that we took inspiration from, and of course all the Evil Dead movies, right?
Now I want to ask you about Diablo Cody, because early on, we kept hearing she's involved in this project from the very beginning. But then, as the project kind of moved on, I heard less and less about her. So I was just curious about her actual involvement in the film. I guess how much she contributed to the script, and just kind of her role. If you could speak about that, please.
Yeah, she did a great job at some point. When I finished my last draft with Rodo, we asked for an American writer to come in to do just a pass on dialogues because we thought there was no way we were ever going to create realistic American dialogues just because it's not our first language. And she's a big Evil Dead fan. So and she came on board to do that, and she did a polish on dialogue a little bit, but without changing scenes, without really changing any of the characters or the plot, and just naturally, I think at the end we ended up using very little of it. So WGA, they have a jury and they kind of decide on that, and she didn't get her credit. We just didn't use enough of her job.
Okay, well then that makes a little more sense. Now I'm just curious, how hard was it to get a rating for Evil Dead that was acceptable for theaters? Because I know that there was some press that you had to cut like 15 minutes of the movie out to get a rated R rating to be able to get it into theaters. And I know that's been kind of a trouble for some people like Adam Green in the past with his Hatchet film that made it in theaters unrated but then was pulled. So I'm just curious, how much did you have to pull back on Evil Dead but still keep it your vision?
It was hard, but they were very helpful. Like, ironically, they were very helpful. Sometimes the PA can drive you crazy by not telling you why the movie is getting a bad rating, the rating you don't want. And sometimes they're very precise. And in this case, they were very precise with us. They said like there was this and this and that. They gave us like 5 notes on the first cut, and thank God we didn't have to get rid of those. We just had to get rid of 5 frames, 10 frames in some moments, And at the end, honestly, I think they help us to make a better movie, because when they tell you, okay, you can show this for 25 frames, you as a director, working with my editor, you want to make sure that those 25 frames you see are the best ones you have. So they end up helping us to have a sharper cut in a way, right? So I don't think the movie bleed at all for the cuts down. It's still the same movie that we had before.
So you kind of touched on this before, but was there any part of you that was like, holy crap, I'm doing Evil Dead? Were you trying to make sure that you lived up to the standards or impressed anybody? Like, who were you scared most of impressing? Was it Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, or just kind of the horror community as a whole?
I would say neither. I would say myself. It was really not impressive, but I'm pretty demanding with myself and my work, and I always put a lot of pressure on myself. I try to do the best job I can every time. I'm quite obsessive with my work as a director, as a writer, and everything. So really during the whole process, I was the toughest one to please in many levels, because even when I had the first draft was done, they loved it, and Sam was in love with the first draft, and Rob Tapper loved it, and I was still believing he wasn't 100% ready, and it wasn't good enough, and Then we did a second draft, and they loved it too, and I was still believing it wasn't good enough. And then I cut the movie, and I finished my first cut, and I hated it. And I showed it to Sam Raimi. He loved it. And so it was really, I think the hardest person to please was myself. It's just the way I work, I guess. Every time I finish something, I really, really demanding with myself. So, and because I'm a Sam Raimi fan, and I'm a Evil Dead fan. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a horror fan because I don't watch every horror movie out there anymore, but I used to be. And so at the end of the day, I knew that if I was pleasing myself, if I was making a movie that I would love, I knew people out there were going to love it. That was something that one of the best advices Sam gave me in the beginning, which was, Fede, you have to make the movie you want to see in the theaters. Don't try to make the movie you think I want to see. Don't try to make the movie that you think the audience wants to see. You have to make the movie you want to go and see in the theater. That's the only way. Because your instinct is the only thing you always have with you. So, and I was so right. It's so true, right? And at the end of the day, if you're faithful to, you're truthful to your feelings and your desires and your taste, at the end of the day, what you hope is going to be an audience out there that feels just like you, right? And that's in every art form. I think it's like that. You have to do it kind of for yourself and what you believe is cool. You cannot do something trying to please somebody. That sounds like failure.
That's good insight. Now, as I mentioned early on, you shot on a really grueling schedule, something like 77 days straight, I think I heard, and all while using practical effects. So I'm curious, what was the most difficult scene to shoot using those practical effects for the actors, and why?
It's hard. I guess a lot of things were so tough in this movie. Probably, I would say everything in the cellar with Natalie and Mia on top of her, the cutting of the tongue, the blood kiss, all those things. They were so tough for the actresses, and also, like as a director, you're trying to convince everybody that the way you want to do this is the right way, right? And that was one of those days where, my idea of going 100% practical was kind of falling apart a little bit because what we were shooting was looking so bad. I remember the first time we did the first shot with the tongue cut in half, and we were puppeteering the fake tongue and everything. It looked embarrassing on set, but and then you have to be courageous and keep going and keep going because everybody's going like, I told you we should have gone with the CG tongue, and you have to believe in your vision. And thank God we managed to pull it off. And then on the editing, we ended up cutting it away. Then ended up looking great. But it was something that it was one of those that really took a lot of job to make that all those moments look real, right?
Well, Fede, I know we're running long on time here, so I just want to say once again, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, check out Evil Dead. I know you're going to. It comes in theaters April 5th nationwide. It's already getting great praise from the festival circuit down at South by Southwest and early screenings. So everyone check that out. And thank you once again, Fede, for joining us.
No, just thank you all, guys. Thank you all for a great question, guys.
All right, thanks, man. Take care. And that does it for another edition of the Creepcast here on DownrightCreepy.com. Hope you enjoyed our time with Fede Alvarez of Evil Dead. If you want to check out more interviews like this or our podcast, please get on iTunes, search for Creepcast on Downright Creepy. We're also available on Stitcher Radio or our website, DownrightCreepy.com. So until next time, this is Casey Canton with my boomstick in my hand, saying thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you. Not another peep. Time to go to sleep.
You are listening to a Downright Creepy original on the Crickets Podcast Network.